TractorTalk.com. It's Kentucky Derby. We're going to take a look at the main contenders. I'm joined in studio with Matthew Holt, VP of Business Development at CG Technologies. Matt, we got three horses that are going to draw the main attention. And of course, on Saturday, the one that's going to get all of the attention is the horse that's undefeated, Nyquist, trained by Doug O'Neill. And we talked about it was just a couple years ago that he did have a horse win the Kentucky Derby, and I'll have another. And I'm sure after they got to the winner's circle, they had quite a few of another's afterwards celebrating that win. But Nyquist, for a horse that's undefeated, 7 for 7. A lot of people, a lot of experts are taking shots at the horse and, questioning that, does he deserve to be an overwhelming favorite in this race? And one question that I forgot to ask you in the last video, do you guys have a prop? I know that some of the books have put it up in years past because everybody talks about the Triple Crown. Do you guys have a prop of a yes or no? Will there be a Triple Crown winner this year?
Absolutely. We have a yes, no. Will there be a Triple Crown winner? Obviously, the no is a substantial favorite. We also have, I think, 12 to 15 separate matchups. And we also did 4 group betting, where the first group, I think, is Gunrunner, Nyquist, Exaggerator, and Mohaymen. So you could bet horses to win out of groups. So if you just want to beat a horse to beat 3 other horses, we have that. And we also did a bet this year that Jason came up with where we split it into 3 minus 110 bets by splitting up the field into 3 separate groups so that they're all minus 110.
Oh, nice. So we'll have to check those ones out. It makes it different, other ways to try to get some different odds, there with you. And I like the matchups. And part of the matchups, is, again, it comes down to you've got a handicap. It doesn't matter if it's football, baseball, basketball, or horse racing. You've got to look at things. And the big question here is going to be the pace of the race.
That's right.
That's the thing where there's really only 2 speed horses. And to win the Kentucky Derby, the preferred, there's a myth that most people think, well, this is the first time they're going 1.25 miles. So everybody says the closers have the best shot, at the longer distance. In theory, they're half right. It's closers do well, but it's not the stone cold closers that come from dead last.
That's right.
It's the ones that are stalkers, that are just off the pace in that mid-pack where they're close enough to the pace that they stay out of road trouble, because as you alluded to in the first video, there's 20 horses in this field. This will be the only time in these horses' careers that they're going to face a 20-horse field, and there's going to be a lot of traffic jams. And a good, clean trip can be the difference between winning or losing. And so often, and we'll talk about some other horses that had bad trips in prep races, and if they get a clean trip here, there might be some value with them. But Nyquist, what do you think about him? Is he a legitimate, undefeated, worthy of 3-1 morning line?
I do think he's a softer favorite. And look, we've had favorites come in lately. California Chrome, American Pharoah. We're on a run of favorites now. But when you look at the last few favorites, American Pharoah, California Chrome, you had they were clearly the best horse in the race. There was no doubt. It was no comparison to who's first or second. They were clearly number one, and then there was everybody else. I don't think Nyquist is that horse, and it's rare for a favorite in the Kentucky Derby to come off a race with less than a 3-digit buyer, where he's coming off a 97 buyer. Normally the favorite's coming in off a 101, 100, 102, so the buyers aren't in his favor. Prior to I'll Have Another, nothing against Doug O'Neill. Us guys on the West Coast really respect him, but Doug O'Neill wasn't the most respected trainer in the national ranks when it came to Derby preps, because he had never won one prior. So I think that there's some doubts maybe about the training connections here, maybe about the horse's consistency. We look at the buyer speed figures, we're all over the place here. 94, 96, 102, 103, 97. So this is a horse, when he runs his best, can beat any of these horses, but has also shown that some of his speed numbers don't necessarily match up. And he hasn't, outside of, look, he beat Brody's Cause and he beat Mohaymen, but he hasn't raced the toughest competition throughout his career. I do think there are some question marks with this horse.
The big question was the Florida Derby, and we'll go to the other horse in that race, Mohaymen. And to be honest with you, there were only 2 horses in that race. The rest of that field was really bad, and they really had to try to solicit to get some guys to fill that race to have there, because nobody wanted to go in. And when you found out that the 2 undefeated horses were going to be there, you're going in figuring I'm racing for third money at best, and trainers don't want to do that, especially if they were trying to get to the Derby and needed points. You don't
with
want
lots of prep options now.
Yeah, definitely. So it was a weak field, and Mohaymen didn't show up in that race. And as a horse owner, we like to make excuses for horses, okay, if our horse didn't do well. And Mohaymen has a license for excuses. It was his first bad race. He was actually the favorite going into the Florida Derby for the Kentucky Derby.
Yep.
He was the favorite in that race. He went off 4-5, where Nyquist went off 9-5. He just didn't grab the track. And we talked about it before we went on air. I never seen a Saturday, the Super Saturday of prep races, where we've got races all over the country. It rained at all of them. I mean, it was a horrible day for the track, and some horses just don't like muddy surfaces. And there's so many different kinds of mud, and I know it's going to sound weird to people,
there is.
but there's sticky mud. There's, if they seal the track and different things. And he just didn't seem to grab the track. Now, they made some little bit of shoeing changes for the horse, but we're not supposed to have any weather problems anyways on Saturday. Right now, the forecast is clear for the Kentucky Derby. But if you throw that race out, this is a horse that is, morning line is ridiculous of what they put him at with just one bad race.
I agree. I do think this horse there might be a little overreaction to that one race on both sides. Overreaction to making Nyquist such a monumental favorite. I mean, he opens 3-1 morning line. Exaggerator, who's been as consistent as any horse in this race, as an 8-1 second choice, and everyone else, double digits or higher. Obviously, I do believe in that point that Mohaymen probably got a little undervalued coming off that race, and Nyquist a little overvalued coming off that race. And we talked about sometimes jockeys, they're not perfect either. And I feel like the jockey in that race didn't make the best move. He made an early move. The horse was 6 wide the whole race. To your point, he just didn't seem to stick. As soon as they turned the corner, he was in spot to make his run, and you could tell this horse is finishing 6th or 7th. He just didn't have it that day.
Yeah, for sure. The other horse, the last one we'll talk briefly about with the Contenders, is Exaggerator. Now, this is a horse where it was just an unbelievable move in the Santa Anita Derby. I mean, he blew by the field in that race, and yet the critics like to shoot holes in every good performance because they said it was set up by the mud. He's one of the few horses that was in that race that had raced over a wet track before, and Dancing Candy just raced in a stupid race, fraction-wise. They couldn't control the horse. Suicide fractions on the front end, and it's set up for the closers. But there were other horses in that race that could have closed too, and they didn't close like he did. He went by that entire field like they were standing still. What'd you take out of the Santa Anita Derby?
I thought that was a really impressive race for this horse, and I've watched a few of this horse's races, and while you were talking, I was trying to go back and think of the race that I just watched yesterday again on YouTube. We talked about how great YouTube is for horse racing.
It's the best handicap.
That you can actually watch these races, and it was the juvenile here back in November. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I went back and watched that race, and the jockey makes a horrible early, long outside move to take the lead after having a bad start, and he used up a lot of horse. And they come around the turn, and here come the closers, and you think Exaggerator's dead for rights, has no business. He's going to finish 6th. He's just going to fade. And the jockey hits him, and the horse just keeps pulling away, and you're like, wow. And I think Whitmore was in the race, and there's a couple other Derby horses in that race, and you just went, this horse has that second gear you need in a 1.25 mile race to go ahead and kick it into home stretch, and I was really impressed. The fact that this horse has run 4 straight 100 or better buyers too speaks to the consistency of this horse. To me, on paper, this is the horse to beat. I know Nyquist is going to get all the money, and this isn't my top horse, but this is the horse in my mind. I'm thinking, how do I beat this one?
Absolutely. Okay, well, there's a great preview. And Matt, tell the listeners about, you got a promotion going at CG this week. Tell them about it.
Yeah, we have a really cool promotion that we're doing. It's called the Second Chance Derby giveaway. You come down, you make any bet on the Kentucky Derby, $10 or more, and if your ticket loses, you put it in a drum. And on Preakness Day, as soon as the Preakness race is done, we have a drawing for a bunch of giveaways, free rooms, free stays, dinners. It's a lot of fun. It's a chance for those people that didn't didn't hit the Derby to come back and have a chance, the opportunity without even making a bet to win some cool prizes at the Preakness.
All right, sounds great. All right, guys, hey, and over at Wager Talk this week, we got a deal for you too. It's $10 off. It's Derby week, so the coupon this week's going to be Derby and the number 10. Just punch that in at checkout and you can save $10 on any package this weekend. Use that over at wagertalk.com. We're going to be back more. We're going to look at some other contenders for the Kentucky Derby.